Hello there and welcome to the Snoozy Explorer channel. Tonight we are drifting back through time to a world of stone and sunlight, where an empire built monuments that still stand after 2,000 years. A place where human hands shaped rock into grandeur, where patience measured itself in decades, and where ambition took physical form through the careful placement of one stone upon another. This is the quiet story of the Colosseum. It is a tale not of sudden creation but of gradual accumulation, where thousands of workers moved millions of stones, where engineering met artistry, and where Rome declared its power through architecture that would outlast the empire itself. As we explore this ancient construction, we will discover a world where time moved differently, where projects spanned lifetimes, and where the rhythm of work followed the sun and seasons rather than schedules and deadlines. If you enjoy these gentle journeys into the past, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy explorer at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Allow your body to settle as if you were resting on warm Roman stone. Let your breathing slow to the pace of ancient labor, steady and unhurried. Let your mind drift back to a time when this monument was only an idea, a vision waiting to take shape. Let's begin. Rome in the 1st century was already ancient by its own standards. The city had grown over 800 years from a small settlement on 7 hills into the capital of an empire that stretched from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Syria. Walking through Rome at dawn, you would hear the city waking slowly. Shutters opening. Voices calling softly across narrow streets. The shuffle of sandals on stone. The distant clang of metal from workshops beginning their day. What makes this Rome so different from modern cities is the pace. There was no rushing, no urgency beyond what the day itself demanded. Time was marked by the sun's position, by shadows lengthening across forums, by the gradual progression from morning cool to midday heat to evening relief. The streets near the center were paved with large stones, worn smooth by generations of feet and cart wheels. Buildings rose 3 or 4 stories, their walls painted in faded reds and yellows. Shops occupied ground floors, their fronts open to the street during business hours. Above, apartments housed families who would lean from windows to watch the street below or hang laundry that dried in the Mediterranean sun. The smell of bread baking mixed with less pleasant odors from the streets where waste was thrown. Fountains provided water at intervals, fed by aqueducts that carried water from distant hills. People gathered at these fountains, filling jugs, exchanging news, pausing in their errands to rest in whatever shade was available. Temples dominated the skyline. Massive structures with columns that seemed impossibly tall, their marble surfaces catching light and glowing softly. These were not just religious buildings but statements of power and permanence. The Pantheon stood with its perfect dome. The Temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus crowned the Capitoline Hill. The Forum Romanum was a dense collection of temples, government buildings, and monuments, each competing for attention yet somehow forming a coherent whole. What makes these buildings so remarkable is their scale. They were built not just to serve a function but to impress, to inspire awe, to remind everyone who saw them of Rome's might and the favor of the gods. In this city of marble and ambition, entertainment played a crucial role. Romans worked, but they also expected spectacle. Public games and gladiatorial contests had been part of Roman culture for generations. These events were held in various venues around the city, but by the late 1st century, there was a desire for something grander. The Emperor Vespasian, who came to power in 69 AD after a brief civil war, understood the value of public entertainment. He also understood that building something magnificent could legitimize his rule and create goodwill among the population. What makes Vespasian's decision so calculated is that it was both generous and strategic. He would give the people a gift, but that gift would forever bear his name and remind them of his dynasty's power. The site chosen for this great amphitheater was in a valley between several of Rome's hills. This location had been occupied by an artificial lake that was part of the previous Emperor Nero's vast palace complex. Nero had been deeply unpopular, and his palace had consumed enormous amounts of land in the heart of the city for his personal use. By draining the lake and building a public amphitheater on that spot, Vespasian was symbolically returning land to the people. What had been Nero's private indulgence would become public space for entertainment. The message was clear and powerful. The new emperor was not like the old. He served the people rather than himself, or so the narrative went. The valley was quiet in those early days before construction began. The lake had been drained, leaving behind mud and reeds. Birds waded in shallow pools that remained. The sound of water trickling into drains mixed with the rustle of wind through vegetation. Workers walked the site, driving stakes into the ground to mark boundaries and measurements. Architects stood with scrolls, pointing and discussing angles and dimensions. What makes this planning phase so essential is that everything that followed depended on decisions made here. The size, the shape, the orientation, all had to be determined before a single stone was laid. Rome had built amphitheaters before, but nothing on this scale. The Colosseum would be the largest amphitheater in the world, capable of holding 50,000 spectators. The design was elliptical, an elongated oval that provided good sight lines from every seat. This shape was not arbitrary. It came from practical experience with earlier amphitheaters and from understanding that an ellipse allowed the action in the arena to be visible from all angles while maximizing the number of seats that could fit in a given space. The outer wall would rise to a height of nearly 50 meters, roughly as tall as a modern 15-story building. 4 stories would stack atop each other, each with its own arcade of arches. What makes this design so elegant is its repetition. The same arch shape repeated hundreds of times, creating rhythm and order. Each arch identical to its neighbors, yet together forming something far greater than the sum of its parts. Roman engineers understood arches deeply. The arch was fundamental to their architecture, allowing them to span large distances and support tremendous weight using stone, which is strong in compression but weak in tension. An arch converts the downward weight pressing on it into outward pressure at its base, where that pressure is absorbed by massive supporting structures. This means an arch can hold up far more weight than a simple horizontal beam of the same material. What makes the arch so beautiful structurally is this efficiency. It uses material exactly where needed and nowhere else. The keystone at the top of an arch is the last piece placed, and once it is in position, the arch becomes self-supporting, each stone held in place by the pressure of those around it. The Colosseum would use arches everywhere. The outer arcade had 80 arches on the ground level, 76 on each of the next 2 levels. These arches were not just decorative. They were structural, supporting the weight of the levels above while creating open passageways for crowds to enter and exit. Inside, barrel vaults and groin vaults covered corridors and supported seating areas. A vault is simply an extended arch, either running in one direction like a tunnel, or intersecting at right angles to create a cross vault. These vaults allowed the Colosseum to have large interior spaces without needing forests of columns to hold everything up. What makes this vaulted construction so impressive is that it creates a 3-dimensional puzzle where every stone depends on every other stone, and the whole structure stands through mutual support rather than brute strength. Before construction could begin, materials had to be gathered. The Colosseum would require an enormous quantity of stone, concrete, brick, and metal. The primary stone was travertine, a form of limestone quarried from Tivoli, about 20 miles from Rome. Travertine is a beautiful stone, cream-colored with subtle variations and occasional holes where gas bubbles were trapped as the stone formed from mineral deposits. It is also durable and relatively easy to work compared to harder stones like granite or marble. What makes travertine perfect for large construction projects is this combination of beauty, workability, and strength. It can be carved with reasonable effort, yet it endures for centuries without significant decay. The quarries at Tivoli were ancient even then, having supplied stone for earlier Roman buildings. Workers at the quarries followed established routines passed down through generations. They would identify suitable sections of stone, then cut channels around blocks using metal tools. Wedges were driven into these channels, splitting the stone along natural planes. What makes this quarrying so labor-intensive is that every block had to be freed from the earth through human effort. There were no explosives, no powered machinery. Just workers with hammers, chisels, and wedges, striking repeatedly until stone yielded. The sound of metal on stone rang across the quarry from dawn until dusk, a steady percussion that echoed off quarry walls. Once freed, blocks had to be shaped roughly to approximate their final dimensions. This reduced weight for transport. A block might weigh several tons even after rough shaping. Moving such weights required careful planning. Wooden rollers were placed beneath blocks, and teams of oxen pulled them slowly across relatively flat ground to loading areas. What makes this transportation so challenging is friction and gravity. A multi-ton block resists movement stubbornly. It takes enormous force to overcome inertia and start it rolling. Hills are nearly impossible obstacles. The route from quarry to Rome had to be carefully chosen to avoid steep grades, even if that meant going farther. Time was not the primary concern. Arriving safely with undamaged stone mattered more than arriving quickly. At the Tiber River, blocks were loaded onto barges. The river provided a convenient highway directly into Rome. Barges floated heavy loads far more easily than carts could roll them. What makes river transport so practical is that water supports weight, eliminating friction. The current did much of the work, carrying barges downstream while crews used poles and oars for steering. The journey took hours or days depending on conditions, but it was peaceful work compared to the quarry. The soft sound of water against the barge hull, the creak of wood, the occasional call between crew members, birds following the river, reeds along the banks bending in the breeze. In Rome, barges were unloaded at docks near the construction site. This required cranes and pulleys, devices Romans had refined over centuries. A crane consisted of wooden beams arranged to provide mechanical advantage, with ropes running through pulleys to multiply the force workers could apply. What makes these cranes so elegant is simplicity. No part is complex, yet the whole device allows a few workers to lift weights that would be impossible otherwise. The principle is leverage and mechanical advantage, distributing weight and multiplying force through geometry. Workers would attach ropes to a stone block, then walk in circles around the crane, winding rope onto a drum. Slowly, the block would rise, swinging slightly until it cleared the barge. Then it would be swung over the dock and lowered carefully onto a cart for the final journey to the construction site. Other materials came from closer sources. Tufa, a softer volcanic rock, was quarried from hills around Rome and used for interior walls where great strength was not needed. Brick was manufactured in kilns outside the city, shaped from clay and baked until hard. Lime for mortar and concrete was produced by heating limestone until it decomposed into quicklime, which could then be mixed with water, sand, and volcanic ash to create the cement that bound everything together. What makes Roman concrete so remarkable is its durability. The volcanic ash they used, called pozzolana, created a chemical reaction that made the concrete extremely strong and resistant to water. Some Roman concrete structures have survived better than modern concrete would under similar conditions. At the construction site, materials were organized into stockpiles. Travertine blocks were sorted by size and shape. Bricks were stacked carefully to prevent breakage. Sand, lime, and pozzolana were kept dry under shelters. Timber for scaffolding and formwork arrived in long beams and planks, cut from forests in regions where Rome had timber rights. Metal was precious and carefully controlled. Iron for tools and bronze for decorative elements came from mines across the empire. What makes this organization so essential is efficiency. With hundreds of workers on site, materials had to be accessible when needed. Delays caused by searching for the right block or mixing more mortar wasted time and disrupted the rhythm of work. The workforce was massive and diverse. Skilled stonemasons who understood how to shape blocks precisely. Laborers who carried materials and mixed mortar. Carpenters who built scaffolding and wooden forms for concrete. Engineers who supervised and ensured that construction followed plans. Slaves performed much of the heavy labor, as was common in Roman construction. What makes understanding this workforce so important is recognizing that the Colosseum was built by human hands and muscle. Every stone was lifted by workers pulling ropes. Every wall was built by workers placing stones and spreading mortar. The scale of human effort is staggering. Thousands of people working for years to create one building. Construction began with foundations. The site had been a lake, which meant the ground was not naturally stable. Before building upward, Engineers had to create a solid base that could support the immense weight of the structure. Workers excavated down to firmer soil, removing the softer surface layers. What makes foundation work so unglamorous yet crucial is that everything depends on it. A building on poor foundations will eventually settle, crack, and potentially collapse. No amount of beautiful stonework above ground can compensate for inadequate support below. Roman engineers understood this thoroughly and took foundation work seriously. The foundation consisted of a massive concrete ring, nearly 13 meters deep in places and many meters thick. This concrete was not poured all at once but built up in layers, each layer allowed to cure partially before the next was added. What makes this layering so important is strength. Concrete gains strength as it cures, a chemical process that takes time. Adding too much weight too quickly to uncured concrete can cause problems. By building gradually and allowing time for curing, engineers ensured that the foundation would be solid. The concrete itself was a mixture of lime mortar, volcanic ash, and aggregate, which included broken pottery, small stones, and rubble. This aggregate reduced the amount of expensive lime needed while adding bulk and strength. As the foundation rose to ground level, the shape of the Colosseum began to define itself. Workers laid out the elliptical plan using ropes and stakes, measuring carefully to ensure the curve was correct. What makes creating an accurate ellipse so challenging is that it is not a simple shape like a circle. An ellipse has two focal points, and every point on the curve must be the same total distance from both foci. Romans did not have computers or precise instruments. They had ropes, stakes, and geometry. Teams of workers stretched ropes between focal points and used them to mark the correct curve, point by point, around the entire perimeter. This took patience and repeated checking, but the result was accurate enough that the building's symmetry is still evident today. Once the foundation was complete, the building could begin rising. The outer wall would be the defining feature, the face the Colosseum presented to Rome. This wall was constructed primarily of travertine blocks, each carefully shaped to fit its position. What makes travertine construction so precise is that blocks were not simply stacked like children's toy blocks. Each block was cut to a specific shape that would fit with its neighbors, creating a tight joint with minimal gaps. Masons used templates made from wood or metal to guide their carving, ensuring consistency. A block that did not fit properly had to be adjusted, shaved down, or recut until it seated correctly. Mortar was not used extensively in the outer travertine wall. Instead, blocks were held together by their own weight and by metal clamps. Iron clamps shaped like butterflies or hooks were set into channels carved in adjacent blocks, linking them together. These clamps were then sealed with lead poured into the channels, creating a strong connection while allowing slight flexibility. What makes this clamping system so effective is that it distributes stress. If one part of the wall shifts slightly, the clamps prevent that movement from propagating into larger cracks. The wall becomes a unified structure rather than a pile of independent blocks. Unfortunately for the Colosseum, in later centuries these metal clamps became valuable and were extracted from the walls, leaving the distinctive holes visible today where clamps once resided. The first level rose slowly. Each arch required careful construction. Workers built wooden formwork, temporary structures that supported stones while arches were being built. The formwork was curved to match the arch's shape. Stones were laid on this formwork, starting from both sides and working toward the center. What makes building an arch so dramatic is the moment when the keystone is placed. Until that moment, the arch is held up only by the wooden formwork. Once the keystone locks into place, the arch becomes self-supporting. The formwork can be removed, and the arch stands on its own, each stone pressing against its neighbors, the whole structure held up by compression. There is something almost magical in this transformation, when carefully arranged stones suddenly cohere into a stable structure that will stand for centuries. Between arches, the wall was solid travertine, creating piers that supported the weight of the upper levels. These piers were massive, several meters thick, providing the strength needed to hold up the entire structure. What makes the design so elegant is the balance between void and solid. The arches create openness, allowing light and air and people to pass through. The piers provide strength, anchoring everything. Too many arches would weaken the structure. Too few would make it heavy and fortress-like. The Romans found a proportion that gave strength and grace in equal measure, 80 arches around the circumference at ground level, each separated by solid stone. As the first level neared completion, work began on the second. The process was similar but happened at greater height, which added complexity. Materials had to be lifted higher. Workers labored on scaffolding and platforms built against the rising walls. What makes working at heights so much more difficult is that everything takes longer and requires more care. A block being lifted might swing in the wind. A worker must watch footing constantly because a fall from the second level could be fatal. Despite these challenges, work proceeded. The second level's arches mirrored those below but were slightly smaller. The columns between arches on the second level were Ionic in style, different from the Doric columns of the first level, creating visual variety as the building rose. The third level followed the same pattern, with Corinthian columns, the most ornate of the three classical orders, featuring elaborate capitals decorated with carved acanthus leaves. The fourth level was different. Instead of arches, it was a solid wall with rectangular windows. This attic story served as the base for the masts that supported the velarium, the massive awning that could be stretched over the arena to provide shade for spectators. What makes this progression of styles upwards so aesthetically pleasing is that it creates a visual journey. The eye travels upward, seeing increasingly ornate decoration as the building rises, until finally reaching the functional simplicity of the attic wall. Each level has its character, yet all work together as a unit. Inside the Colosseum, construction was equally complex. The seating area, the cavea, rose in tiers from the arena floor to the top of the building. These tiers were supported by a complex system of vaults and arches that created both strength and accessibility. Corridors and stairways wound through the interior, allowing crowds to reach their seats efficiently. What makes this internal structure so impressive is that it had to serve multiple purposes simultaneously. It had to support the weight of thousands of people sitting on stone seats. It had to provide routes for those people to enter and exit quickly. It had to be strong enough to last indefinitely. And it had to be built without modern tools or techniques. The seating tiers were divided into sections based on social class. The lowest tier, closest to the action, was reserved for senators and other elites. Above them sat the equestrian class, Rome's wealthy business and administrative class. Higher still were ordinary citizens, with the uppermost sections reserved for the poorest Romans and women. What makes this division so telling about Roman society is that even in entertainment, hierarchy was maintained and reinforced. Your seat in the Colosseum reflected your status in society. Everyone could attend, which was relatively egalitarian compared to many ancient societies, yet where you sat reminded you constantly of your place in the social order. The emperor and his family had a special box at ground level, positioned for the best view and maximum visibility, because being seen was as important as seeing. The seats themselves were carved from stone, most likely travertine in the lower sections and cheaper materials higher up. Each seat was carefully shaped with a slight indent for comfort, though comfort is a relative term when sitting on stone for hours. What makes these seats so remarkable is their quantity. Tens of thousands of individual seats, each one carved and positioned, rising in concentric ellipses toward the sky. The geometry required to ensure that every seat had a reasonable view was sophisticated, requiring understanding of angles and sight lines that the Romans had developed through generations of building theaters and amphitheaters. Between the seating tiers and the arena floor was a high wall, elaborately decorated with marble and protective barriers. This wall served a crucial function beyond aesthetics. It kept the dangerous activities in the arena separated from spectators. Wild animals could not leap into the crowd. Gladiators could not accidentally or intentionally harm audience members. What makes this barrier so essential is that it allowed proximity to danger without actual risk. Spectators could sit close enough to see clearly, to feel the excitement and fear, yet remain protected. This combination of closeness and safety was part of what made the spectacles so compelling. The arena floor itself was originally wooden, covered with sand. The Latin word for sand is harina, which is where we get the English word arena. This sand served practical purposes. It absorbed blood, making the floor less slippery. It could be raked smooth between events. It provided better footing than bare wood for both humans and animals. What makes the arena floor so deceptively simple is what lay beneath it. Below the wooden surface was an elaborate network of chambers, corridors, and mechanical systems called the hypogeum. This underground area was where gladiators waited before fights, where animals were kept in cages, and where stage machinery allowed dramatic appearances through trapdoors in the arena floor. The hypogeum was not part of the original construction. It was added later, probably under the Emperor Domitian, who completed the Colosseum after his father Vespasian and brother Titus had both died. What makes the hypogeum so ingenious is how it turned the arena floor into a stage where anything could appear seemingly from nowhere. A trapdoor would open, and a lion would emerge, or a forest scene would rise up on a platform. This element of surprise and spectacle was carefully engineered, requiring complex systems of pulleys, counterweights, and elevators operated by workers in the chambers below. The audience saw magic. Below the floor, dozens of workers pulled ropes and turned capstans to make that magic happen. The corridors and chambers of the hypogeum were carved partly from the foundation and partly built up with brick and concrete. The space was cramped, dark, and must have been uncomfortably hot during summer performances when the arena above was filled with 50,000 people. What makes working in the hypogeum so challenging is the claustrophobia and noise. Above, crowds roared and music played. Below, workers shouted instructions to coordinate complex operations, their voices echoing off brick walls. The smell of animals mixed with human sweat and the dampness of underground spaces. Yet this was where much of the real work of the spectacle happened, invisible to the audience that saw only the results. Access to the hypogeum came through passages from outside the Colosseum and from within the building itself. These passages had to be designed so that animals could be moved from holding areas to the arena floor without escaping into areas where people were present. Gates and multiple barriers ensured security. What makes these passages so important is that they reveal how thoroughly the Romans thought through every aspect of the building's function. It was not enough to create a space for spectacles. They had to engineer systems that made those spectacles possible safely and reliably, performance after performance, year after year. The construction of the Colosseum required coordination on a massive scale. Different work crews handled different aspects of the project simultaneously. While some workers were laying travertine on the third level, others were building interior vaults, and still others were carving decorative elements. What makes this coordination so impressive is that it happened without modern communication technology. Instructions were given in person. Plans were drawn on papyrus or explained through wooden models. Changes had to be communicated through chains of workers and supervisors. Despite these limitations, the work proceeded in an organized manner, each team completing their portion while maintaining alignment with everyone else's work. The project consumed resources at a staggering rate. Thousands of tons of stone arrived continuously. Lime kilns operated constantly to supply mortar and concrete. Forests were harvested for scaffolding timber and formwork. What makes this consumption so significant is its economic impact. The Colosseum represented an enormous investment not just of money but of materials and labor that could have been used for other purposes. The decision to build it was a political statement as much as a practical one. The emperors of the Flavian dynasty, starting with Vespasian, were declaring their commitment to public welfare and their ability to marshal resources for monumental projects. Financing came from multiple sources. War booty from the Jewish revolt, which Vespasian and his son Titus had led before becoming emperors, provided significant funds. Taxation generated ongoing revenue. What makes this financing so interesting is that while the emperors sponsored the project, the actual wealth came from the empire's subjects. Every stone was paid for indirectly by taxes from provinces across the Mediterranean. The Colosseum was built with Egyptian grain taxes, Spanish silver, Gallic tributes, and wealth extracted from conquered peoples. In this sense, it represented not just Roman engineering but Roman imperialism, a monument made possible by controlling an empire. The construction timeline spanned roughly a decade. Work began around 72 AD under Vespasian and was substantially complete by 80 AD when Titus dedicated the building with elaborate games lasting 100 days. What makes this timeline so remarkably fast for such a massive project is the unlimited access to labor and resources. When an emperor wanted something built, barriers that might stop other projects simply did not apply. Permits, funding, labor, materials, all were available on demand. This is not to diminish the achievement but to contextualize it. The Colosseum rose quickly because every resource the empire could provide was directed toward its completion. Workers labored from sunrise to sunset, their days structured around the sun's movement across the sky. Morning was the time for detailed work that required good light, like carving stone or setting blocks precisely. Midday heat meant slower work, often focused on tasks that required less precision, like mixing mortar or moving materials. Late afternoon brought a second period of intensive work before light failed. What makes this rhythm so different from modern construction is its direct connection to natural cycles. There were no electric lights to extend the workday. When the sun set, work stopped, and the site grew quiet except for guards watching materials and equipment. Seasons affected construction as well. Winter brought cold and rain, making some work impossible or dangerous. Mortar does not cure properly in freezing temperatures. Wet conditions make moving heavy stones treacherous. Summer heat was exhausting for workers but allowed steady progress. Spring and autumn were optimal, with moderate temperatures and generally dry weather. What makes seasonal variations so significant for a multi-year project is that it creates a natural rhythm of intense activity and slower periods. The building rose in surges during good weather, with progress slowing when conditions were poor. This variation is built into the structure itself, visible to no one but part of its history nonetheless. Accidents were inevitable given the scale of the work and the primitive safety measures compared to modern standards. Workers fell from scaffolding. Blocks slipped from ropes and crushed people below. Tools broke unexpectedly, causing injuries. What makes these accidents so tragic is how preventable they would be today, yet given Roman technology and attitudes toward worker safety, particularly for slaves, they were accepted as unfortunate but expected costs of construction. No detailed records of casualties survive, but statistically, building the Colosseum almost certainly cost hundreds if not thousands of lives. This human cost is rarely mentioned when admiring the finished structure, yet it is part of the story. The labor force changed over the decade of construction. Some workers were present from beginning to end, skilled craftsmen whose expertise was too valuable to waste elsewhere. Others rotated in and out, slaves assigned temporarily before being sent to other projects or sold to new owners. Free laborers came and went as work was available and wages were paid. What makes this turnover so interesting is that it means no single group of workers built the entire Colosseum. It was constructed by waves of people, each contributing their part before moving on, most never knowing the full scope of what they had helped create. The building became larger than any individual or group, a collective achievement that no one person could claim. As the building rose higher, the view from its upper levels became remarkable. Workers taking breaks could look out over Rome, seeing the city spread across its hills, the Tiber winding through, temples and monuments catching sunlight. What makes this view so poignant is that most of these workers would never return to the Colosseum once construction finished. They might see it from the outside, might even attend events there if they were lucky, but they would not stand again on its upper levels looking out over the city they had served through their labor. That view, that perspective, was a temporary privilege granted by the act of building. The decorative elements of the Colosseum added beauty to engineering. The columns between arches were not structural necessities, they were aesthetic choices. Doric columns on the first level suggested strength and simplicity. Ionic columns on the second added elegance. Corinthian columns on the third brought ornate refinement. What makes these choices so interesting is that they follow architectural conventions developed in Greece centuries earlier. Rome borrowed heavily from Greek aesthetics while developing its own engineering innovations. The combination of Greek decorative tradition with Roman structural innovation created a hybrid style that was distinctly Roman despite its borrowed elements. Statues filled niches in the outer wall between the arches of the upper levels. These statues depicted gods, heroes, and allegorical figures, creating a gallery of images that reinforced Roman values and mythology. What makes these statues so important to the overall design is that they transformed a sports arena into a temple of sorts, connecting entertainment to the sacred and heroic. The Colosseum was not just a place to watch fights. It was a place where Rome's cultural and religious identity was displayed publicly and continuously. The statues have not survived, removed, or destroyed over centuries, but their niches remain empty, like missing teeth in an ancient smile. The exterior walls were originally covered with marble panels in places, adding gleaming white surfaces to the cream-colored travertine. Bronze shields decorated the attic wall, creating glittering reflections of sunlight that must have been visible across the city. What makes this exterior decoration so significant is that it announced the Colosseum's importance from a distance. The building did not hide behind walls or blend into its surroundings. It proclaimed itself boldly, declaring that something important happened within, something worthy of Rome's grandest architectural statement. The decoration was stripped away over centuries, leaving the more austere appearance we see today, which has its own beauty but is not what ancient Romans experienced. Inside, the decoration was equally lavish. Marble veneered walls in public corridors. Painted plaster created colorful surfaces in less visible areas. Floor mosaics depicted scenes related to the games or featured geometric patterns. What makes this interior decoration so interesting is that it shows how Romans understood that the experience of attending the Colosseum went beyond just watching events in the arena. The journey through the building, moving from entrance through corridors to one's seat, was part of the experience and deserved aesthetic attention. Every surface was an opportunity to impress, to remind visitors that they were in a special place built by a powerful civilization. Water supply and drainage were carefully engineered. Fountains provided drinking water at various points for spectators. The building had latrines, public toilets that were flushed by running water. All of this water had to come from somewhere and had to drain somewhere. What makes Roman water engineering so sophisticated is that it operated entirely through gravity. Aqueducts brought water from sources higher than Rome. That elevation provided pressure that moved water through pipes and channels. Drainage worked the same way, carrying waste downhill to the Tiber or into sewers that eventually reached the river. No pumps were needed because the system was designed so gravity did all the work. This simplicity made it reliable and maintainable with Roman technology. The velarium, the massive awning that shaded spectators, was an engineering marvel in itself. It consisted of canvas sections that could be stretched over the arena using ropes attached to masts on the attic wall. Sailors from the Roman Navy operated the velarium, their experience with rigging and ropes making them ideal for managing the complex system. What makes the velarium so impressive is scale. It had to cover most of the seating area, protecting tens of thousands of people from sun. This meant hundreds of individual ropes, carefully coordinated, adjusted based on wind and weather. When deployed, the velarium transformed the Colosseum from an open-air arena into a partially covered space, cooler and more comfortable, allowing events to proceed even during the hottest parts of summer days. The dedication of the Colosseum in 80 AD was a spectacular event. The Emperor Titus sponsored 100 days of games featuring gladiatorial combat, animal hunts, and mock naval battles. What makes this dedication so extravagant is that it was designed to establish the Colosseum's reputation immediately. Romans would associate the building with unforgettable spectacles, ensuring that it would be used and valued for generations. The dedication also served political purposes, strengthening Titus's popularity and demonstrating the dynasty's commitment to public entertainment. Every beast killed, every gladiator who fought, every day of games reinforced the message that the Flavian emperors cared for Rome's people. The mock naval battles, called naumachii, required flooding the arena floor with water. How exactly this was accomplished remains debated among historians. The hypogeum had not yet been built, so the arena was a simple basin that could potentially be flooded and drained. What makes these naval battles so remarkable is their ambition. Staging ship combat inside a building, even a very large building, required not just engineering but imagination. The Romans looked at their new amphitheater and asked not just what it could obviously do, but what it might be made to do with creativity and effort. The naval battles may have been impractical and short-lived features, but they demonstrated Rome's willingness to attempt the spectacular regardless of difficulty. After the dedication, the Colosseum settled into regular use. Games were held frequently, sponsored by the emperor or wealthy citizens seeking popularity. On event days, the building filled from early morning as spectators claimed their seats. What makes these regular events so important socially is that they provided common experience across Roman society. Everyone, regardless of class, attended the same building on the same days, watching the same spectacles. This created shared cultural references and memories that bound society together despite deep inequalities. The gladiator everyone was talking about, the remarkable animal hunt, the unexpected outcome of a fight, these became conversation topics that crossed social boundaries. The building required constant maintenance from the moment it opened. Stone needed cleaning. Marble needed polishing. Drains needed clearing. Structural issues had to be addressed before they became serious. What makes maintenance so essential for any building, but especially for one as large and complex as the Colosseum, is that neglect accumulates into disaster. A small crack ignored becomes a large crack that threatens stability. A blocked drain causes water damage that weakens walls. Regular attention prevents catastrophic failures. The Romans understood this and maintained the Colosseum carefully for centuries, ensuring it remained functional and safe. The Colosseum was damaged multiple times over the centuries, most significantly by earthquakes. Rome sits in a seismically active region, and several strong earthquakes struck during the building's active lifetime. The southern side was particularly damaged in a medieval earthquake, and rather than repair it, much of that section collapsed and was never rebuilt, creating the asymmetric ruin we see today. What makes earthquake damage so severe for ancient buildings is that they were not designed with seismic resistance in mind. Romans built strong, heavy structures that relied on mass for stability. During an earthquake, that mass becomes a liability as inertia causes different parts of the building to move at different rates, creating shear forces that crack walls and topple columns. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the Colosseum gradually fell out of use for its original purpose. The last recorded gladiatorial combat occurred in the early 5th century. Animal hunts continued somewhat longer but eventually ceased as well. What makes the end of the games so gradual and undramatic is that Rome itself was declining. The population shrank. Resources grew scarce. The cultural and economic conditions that supported elaborate public spectacles simply disappeared. The Colosseum did not close with a final spectacular event. It simply stopped being used as events became rarer and eventually stopped altogether. During medieval times, the Colosseum served various purposes, none related to entertainment. Parts of it were converted into housing. Sections were used as workshops. One family fortified it and used it as a castle for a time. What makes this reuse so interesting is that it shows how adaptable the structure was. Even in ruins, partially collapsed, stripped of decoration, the Colosseum provided useful space. Its arches sheltered people. Its walls supported roofs. The building continued serving Rome, just not in the way its builders intended. This secondary life as practical urban space lasted centuries, gradually transforming the monument into something unrecognizable from its original incarnation. The marble, bronze, and iron that once decorated the Colosseum were systematically stripped away for reuse. Marble was burned to make lime for new construction. Bronze was melted down. Iron clamps were extracted from walls. What makes this destruction so ironic is that it was not done by barbarians or enemies but by Romans themselves and their medieval descendants who saw the Colosseum as a convenient quarry of pre-cut stone and valuable materials. Great churches and palaces in Rome contained stone taken from the Colosseum. The structure was cannibalized to build its successors, a cycle that continued until preservation efforts began in more recent centuries. The rediscovery of the Colosseum's importance came during the Renaissance when renewed interest in classical antiquity made Roman ruins worthy of study and protection. Artists drew the Colosseum. Scholars measured it. Popes decreed that it should be preserved, partly because Christian martyrs were believed to have died there, though this is historically questionable. What makes this preservation effort so significant is that it saved what remained. Without protection, the Colosseum might have been completely dismantled for its stone. Instead, it was recognized as a monument worth maintaining, and that recognition has allowed it to survive to the present day. Modern visitors to the Colosseum see a building that is both itself and a ghost of itself. The outer wall stands mostly intact on one side, collapsed on the other. The interior is a maze of exposed foundations and vaults where seating once rose. The arena floor is gone, revealing the hypogeum beneath. What makes the ruin so powerful is that it requires imagination to complete. You must mentally populate it with crowds, restore its decorations, rebuild its collapsed sections. This imaginative work creates connection across time. Standing in the Colosseum, you are in the same space ancient Romans occupied, and though the building has changed, the fundamental geometry remains. You stand where they stood, looking at walls they built, walking paths they walked. The construction techniques visible in the Colosseum influenced architecture for centuries after Rome fell. The Renaissance revived classical forms consciously. The Enlightenment studied Roman engineering. Modern stadiums owe clear debts to Roman amphitheaters in their basic form and function. What makes the Colosseum so influential is that it solved problems that remain relevant. How do you move large crowds efficiently? How do you give many people good views of a central area? How do you create a structure that is both beautiful and functional? The Roman solutions are still instructive today, studied by architects and engineers seeking to understand principles that transcend time and technology. The labor that built the Colosseum has left almost no individual traces. We do not know the names of workers who cut specific stones or built particular arches. No worker signed their work the way artists sometimes did. What makes this anonymity so profound is that it means the Colosseum is a collective achievement in the purest sense, built by thousands of people whose individual contributions are indistinguishable in the finished whole. The building is their memorial, but it does not identify them. They are present in every stone yet completely absent as individuals. This is true of most ancient construction, but the Colosseum's scale makes the anonymity particularly striking. Thousands of lives, decades of effort, all absorbed into a monument that belongs to everyone and no one. Some aspects of the Colosseum's construction remain mysterious despite centuries of study. Exactly how certain heavy stones were lifted to upper levels without modern equipment is still debated. The precise organization of the workforce is unknown. The construction timeline is approximate based on historical references but not documented in detail. What makes these mysteries so intriguing is that they remind us how much has been lost. Knowledge that seemed routine and unremarkable to ancient builders was never written down because everyone already knew it. When that generation died, their practical knowledge died with them, leaving us to reconstruct methods from evidence rather than from instruction. Archaeological work continues at the Colosseum, gradually revealing new details. Modern techniques like ground-penetrating radar show what lies beneath without excavation. Laser scanning creates precise three-dimensional models. Chemical analysis of mortar and stone reveals sources and composition. What makes this ongoing study so valuable is that it continually refines our understanding. Each discovery adds detail to the picture, correcting earlier assumptions or confirming hypotheses. The Colosseum is not a static ruin. It is an active archaeological site where new information emerges regularly, ensuring that our understanding continues evolving. Preservation of the Colosseum is a constant challenge. Stone deteriorates through weathering. Pollution damages surfaces. The sheer weight of the structure stresses foundations that are now nearly 2,000 years old. What makes preservation so complex is balancing multiple goals. The site must remain accessible to visitors, which causes wear. It must be protected from elements and vandalism. It must be stabilized structurally without inappropriate modern interventions that would compromise its authenticity. These competing needs require careful management and ongoing maintenance that will continue indefinitely. Restoration projects have reinforced damaged sections and replaced some missing stones. These interventions are controversial among preservationists. Some argue that ruins should be left as they are, authentic in their decay. Others believe that stabilization is necessary to prevent further loss and that modest restoration helps visitors understand the original structure. What makes this debate so philosophically interesting is that it asks what we owe to the past and how we should interact with inherited monuments. There are no perfect answers, only choices that reflect current values and priorities. The Colosseum's impact on popular imagination cannot be overstated. It has become synonymous with ancient Rome in global consciousness. When people think of Rome, they think of the Colosseum. What makes this symbolic status so powerful is that the building has transcended its original function to become a representation of an entire civilization. It stands for Roman engineering, Roman entertainment, Roman power, Roman history. This symbolic weight is something the building acquired gradually, long after it ceased serving its original purpose. The ancient Romans valued it, but they had many magnificent buildings. Only in retrospect, with most of those other buildings gone, did the Colosseum become the preeminent symbol it is today. The ethics of what happened in the Colosseum trouble modern observers. Gladiatorial combat meant men, often slaves or prisoners, fought to the death for entertainment. Animal hunts killed thousands of exotic beasts, contributing to the extinction or near extinction of some species in regions Rome controlled. What makes this aspect of the Colosseum so difficult is that we cannot separate the architectural achievement from the moral questions about its use. The building is magnificent, but it housed activities we now find abhorrent. This tension is unresolvable. We can admire the engineering while deploring the purpose, holding both responses simultaneously. The gladiators themselves were complex figures in Roman society. Some were slaves with no choice. Others were free men who chose to fight, attracted by fame and prize money. The best gladiators became celebrities, depicted in mosaics and graffiti, their names known across the empire. What makes gladiators so fascinating as historical figures is this combination of degradation and glory. They were simultaneously among the lowest in society and among the most famous. They faced death regularly yet could win freedom and fortune. This paradox reflects broader Roman attitudes about honor, courage, and the entertainment value of danger. The animals displayed and killed in the Colosseum came from across the empire and beyond. Lions from Africa, bears from Europe, elephants from India, tigers from Asia. What makes these animal spectacles so striking is the logistics they required. Capturing dangerous animals, transporting them thousands of miles without modern technology, keeping them alive until they could be displayed, all required substantial expertise and resources. The games created demand that drove hunting and trade networks across continents. The Colosseum's appetite for exotic animals had economic and ecological impacts far beyond Rome itself. Mock battles staged in the arena sometimes recreated famous Roman victories, turning history into entertainment. The Colosseum became a stage where Rome's military glory could be performed for civilians who had never seen war. What makes these reenactments so interesting is that they simplified and dramatized complex historical events, creating popular narratives that shaped how Romans understood their empire. History became spectacle, crafted to entertain and to reinforce messages about Roman superiority and destiny. The arena was not just entertainment. It was propaganda, shaping collective memory and identity. Religious dimensions of the games are often overlooked. Events began with religious rituals. Gladiators swore oaths to gods. Victories were attributed to divine favor. What makes these religious elements so significant is that they placed violence within a sacred framework. The games were not just murder for entertainment. They were offerings, rituals, ways of honoring gods and seeking their favor. This religious context does not justify the violence from a modern perspective, but it helps explain how Romans reconciled brutal entertainment with their values. Within their worldview, the games had meaning beyond spectacle. The social dynamics of attending the Colosseum were complex. Seating arrangements reinforced hierarchy. Yet 50,000 people from all classes shared the same space, breathed the same air, experienced the same events simultaneously. What makes this shared experience so important is that it created common ground in a deeply unequal society. A slave and a senator watched the same fight. They might react differently, interpret it through different lenses, but they shared the moment. These common experiences, repeated regularly, helped bind Roman society together despite divisions that might otherwise have torn it apart. Women attended the Colosseum, though they were relegated to the uppermost sections farthest from the action. This segregation reflected broader Roman attitudes about gender and proper female behavior. What makes women's presence so interesting is that it was allowed at all. Many cultures would have excluded women from such public, violent entertainment. Rome permitted their attendance while also controlling it through spatial separation. This reflects Roman pragmatism that preferred inclusive hierarchy to exclusive purity. Children attended the games. They were exposed to violence as part of growing up Roman, learning cultural values and becoming accustomed to realities of their society. What makes this childhood exposure so striking from a modern perspective is the casualness of it. Violence was not hidden from children. It was something they were meant to witness and absorb as normal. This socialization shaped generations of Romans, normalizing attitudes and behaviors that seem shocking now but were simply how things were in that time and place. As night falls and our exploration of the Colosseum's construction comes to its end, we can reflect on what this monument represents. It is a building constructed by human hands over 10 years, involving thousands of workers who labored in obscurity. It rose from a drained lake in a valley between Roman hills, stone by stone, arch by arch, until it stood as the largest amphitheater in the world. What makes the Colosseum so worthy of wonder is not just its size but its endurance. It has outlasted the empire that built it, outlasted the purposes it served, outlasted countless other buildings that seemed equally permanent in their time. The Colosseum teaches us about ambition and patience. It was not built quickly, though by modern standards the timeline seems remarkably short. It required sustained effort over years, steady work proceeding through seasons and setbacks. What makes this patience so admirable is that it built something that lasted. Quick projects come and go. The Colosseum remains, nearly 2 millennia later, still standing, still drawing millions of visitors, still inspiring awe. This longevity comes partly from quality of construction, but also from the simple fact that the builders were not hurrying. They were building for eternity, or something close to it, and that intention shows in every carefully placed stone. The human cost embedded in the Colosseum stones cannot be ignored even as we admire the achievement. Workers died in its construction. Gladiators died in its arena. Animals were slaughtered by the thousand for entertainment. What makes reckoning with this cost so important is that it provides full context. Beauty and tragedy can coexist in the same structure. Appreciating one does not require ignoring the other. The Colosseum is magnificent and terrible, a testament to human capability and human cruelty, and honest engagement requires holding both truths simultaneously. As your thoughts drift towards sleep, you can let the details fade. You need not remember every technical specification or historical date. What remains is the image of an enormous building rising slowly from earth, built by countless people whose names are lost, standing now as a shell of its former self yet still magnificent. The Colosseum exists in stone and in imagination, a place where past and present meet, where visitors stand in spaces carved out 2,000 years ago and feel connected across that vast expanse of time. The stones that form the Colosseum were once part of hills outside Rome, buried in earth, waiting through ages of geological time. Then they were cut free, shaped by human tools, transported to the city, lifted into position, and transformed from raw material into architecture. What makes this transformation so profound is that it took what was formless and made it meaningful. The stones were given purpose. They became part of something larger than themselves, joining with other stones to create a structure that would outlast by centuries the hands that placed them. Tonight, the Colosseum stands empty under Roman stars. Lights illuminate its arches for tourists, but inside there is quiet. The roar of ancient crowds exists only in historical accounts and imagination. The building has become a museum of itself, displaying its own history and structure rather than hosting new events. What makes this quiet so peaceful is that it allows the building to simply be, to exist without having to serve its original brutal purpose. The Colosseum has earned its rest, and in that rest, it can be appreciated without moral complication, admired as engineering without celebrating what that engineering enabled. You can rest too now. There is nothing more you need to learn tonight about ancient construction techniques or Roman society. The information has been received and will settle into memory as you sleep. Your breathing has slowed. Your body has relaxed into comfort. Thoughts are becoming less distinct, drifting like dust motes in sunlight streaming through the Colosseum's arches on a quiet afternoon centuries ago. Let yourself sink deeper. The Colosseum took 10 years to build, and you have accompanied it through that decade in one evening. You have watched foundations laid, walls rise, arches assembled, decorations added. You have stood with workers at dawn and watched the sun set on their labor. This journey through time and effort is complete. You can release it now, let it fade into the background of your mind, present but not demanding attention. Somewhere in Rome, the Colosseum stands in darkness. Its stones, placed so carefully all those centuries ago, continue holding each other up through their own weight and geometry, unchanged by your attention or lack thereof. The building does not need you to think about it to continue existing. It simply is, has been, will continue to be for some time yet. This permanence, this patient existence, is something you can borrow for your rest. Be like the stones, solid and still, asking nothing, simply present. Good night, sleepy explorer. Thank you for this journey into the past, for your curiosity about how things were made, for your willingness to imagine the labor and planning that created monuments we now take for granted. May your rest be as peaceful as the Colosseum in its current quiet existence. May your dreams be gentle, perhaps filled with Roman sunlight on ancient stone, or perhaps empty of images entirely, just deep, restful darkness. Sleep well.